All right, welcome everybody to this episode of Breaking Absolutes. I'm really pleased today to be able to have a conversation with Sharon Den Adel from Within Temptation. And she's been an absolute trooper. She's on the road and she's had to do all kinds of gymnastics just to make this possible. So we're really grateful that she would spend some time with us. As a couple of setups here, if you're not familiar with Breaking Absolutes, and my name's Peter Orullian, and it's my show, and Amazon and Twitch asked me if I wanted to do a show, and I told them I did if I could kind of do the kind of show I wanted. And what I wanted to do was a show where I got to dimensionalize artists that I think are doing really unique things that push the boundaries, and as a consequence deserve a broader audience. Not that they don't already have a full measure of success, because in picking the artists that I do to bring on the show, a lot of them are people who have had career success. But I think that the music is even bigger than the success they've had. And so from where I sit, I'm trying to enlarge their audience and go deeper on who they are as artists. So if you like this approach, subscribe, follow, just so we can continue to reach out to people like Sharon and encourage them to spend some time with us. And if you're not familiar with Sharon, let me just do a little bit of preamble here. Sharon she fronts the band. She founded and fronts the band Within Temptation. In her own right, she's done some other music that we want to talk about because it's really, really good. I listened to a track this morning that actually choked me up. The emotion of it was so strong. So I want to ask her about that. But as we do, just some of the accolades that she's garnered in her career. In 2009, there was an International Dance Music Awards where for Best Video for In and Out of Love, as well as Best Progressive House Trance Track, she's twice won Rock Goddess of the Year from the Loudwire Music Awards. There have been nominations for Edison Awards and Echo Awards and Revolver Golden Gods Awards and MTV European Music Awards. They have hit the Belgium charts at #1 more than once. And many other chart positions there, and increasingly in other countries as the band's awareness and success grows. They've been awarded prizes like the Dutch Pop Prize for Best Dutch Contribution, the Dutch Export Prize for Best-Selling Dutch Artist Outside the Netherlands. They've won the Burma Culture Awards, the Edison Award, I may have mentioned that, Metal Hammer, and this goes on. I could continue to read these, but I think you kind of understand the point. The other thing is that because of the nature of Sharon's voice, and I'll ask her about this, she's been asked many times and in various projects to be a participating vocalist, collaborating. She's done that with Ariane, who we've had on the show a couple of times. She's done that with Evanescence. She's done it with Delane. That list goes on. And I like to mention that because I think it's a suggestion that her peers have esteem for her as a musician and vocalist. And I think that's a very telling thing. So with that as my setup, let me bring Sharon on and we'll talk with her. Sharon, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm a bit shy now, blushing all over all those things you said.
Well, it's all true. What I tell artists is you're so busy in being in the moment and creating, you don't always get the opportunity to look back. And so I love to do it because I think it helps you understand how consequential your music is and how beloved it is. So that's why I do that.
Well, thank you very much. It was really sweet, and I did forget a lot actually. It's like, oh yeah.
So,
oh
yeah. You've been doing this for a little while.
Long time. Long time. Yeah. Almost 25 years since our first album came out. So yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, before we get into the deeper music stuff. Let's talk a little bit more, if we can, about Sharon in other regards. You, as a young person, you lived in many different countries. Was that because your parents were because of profession were moving around a lot?
Yeah, they were expats, so we were going from one country to the other after a few years. So like I lived in Yemen and Suriname, Indonesia, and also because my parents were like they wanted to discover the world because they had a fascination for it and for different cultures. They wanted to learn about different cultures, and so even between we had holidays normally should have had normal holidays in the Netherlands where I'm from, they decided to go to Africa or Australia and go with a Volkswagen van, seeing all the nature and yeah, seeing all these beautiful places that I think I would never have seen at such an early age if they had not decided that. And I saw a really diversity of the world and different cultures, and I'm really thankful that I had that opportunity. So
Yeah.
that was the reason. Yeah.
Does have you found that experience has informed you as a musician at all? With the
Well,
music you make, or?
yeah, because I lived in Yemen, for instance. I had certain kind of I heard the typical Arabic kind of music sometimes, and I used it also, for instance, sometimes in our music, like the tuning or maybe the way of how I made notes, certain notes, and how I sang. It's in particular songs like Blue Eyes, which is a B-side song, but it was also a little bit based on that, also lyrically. So it's in different ways. It has I
Yeah.
think yeah, touched me in a way. And also the way I danced on stage was a bit weird, but I used to live in Indonesia the first 6 years of my life, and they have like these dances with their hands and everything. And when I'm on stage, when I just start dancing, people think it's weird in a way, but I like it because it just makes me feel free. And I start dancing the way the Bali dancers are dancing, actually, with their hands and everything. So certain things I think I've adopted somehow
Yeah.
through my education of being in a different country. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I love it. I think it not only gives what you do and as you present the music a distinction, it's also quite beautiful. So I was going to actually ask you about that, but you beat me to it.
Oh, really?
That's
Sorry.
real. No, that's great. I love hearing the backstory. I also understand that some of your university study was as a fashion designer. Was that
Well,
was that something you wanted to do as a profession, or is that just a different interest?
well, the first thing, my biggest passion has always been music, but because everybody told me there was you couldn't earn any money or any living from music, I had to go for a real job because the Netherlands at that time didn't have that much music history or pioneers. They had a few like Shocking Blue, who wrote the original version of Venus, but also of course the Golden Earring. I don't know if you know them, but they had
Yeah.
some amazing songs as well, and they were very big in America at a certain point. But those were just a few people, for a few bands, and so not many people to look up to or to pave the road for other artists, because you had to do it yourself. And so a lot of people said it wasn't, with the type of music that we were making, not very realistic to become like a full-time musician. And so I had to choose a different thing, and I wanted to be a fashion designer, but eventually I chose a more commercial version of that. I had to change it to be in more the logistics and the commercial side, the marketing side of the brands and stuff like that, because there were no jobs at the time when I graduated. So eventually I did something totally different. But with the band, coming back to that, we just started as a hobby band, and just because everybody told us there was no future for it, and we just put all our time and love and effort into it. And I could do all my fashion part also in the band, the way
Yeah.
how the band was presented, of course. So I had, for the band was for me everything. And eventually when it did hit off by accident, that's how we see it anyway. Yeah, that was a big surprise for us. So yeah, so I finally did get to do what I wanted to do, but I still love fashion in every way that I can implement it in the band, and trick everybody to wear something that I like for them.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. I think it's I to the degree that you're sort of influencing some of the look of the band, I think that that's really, really great because it's another area that gives the band some uniqueness. Um, One of the things I read is that along the journey, you were asked to help chair the Eurovision Song Contest. Is that something that you continue to do, or do you still have time for that?
Well, no, I did it once, and that was in the time that I was actually doing a project of my own, working on a project of my own, my Indigo, which is totally different from William Station. It was a solo project that I did. But for me, it was like we've been asked as a band because we were also known out. We were doing really well in other countries, just then the Netherlands only. So people were asking us constantly every year, please go and be a representative of the Eurovision contest. But I felt like, and I wanted to see up close what it would mean if we would do that. So that's why when they, I said, I'm not going to do this for the band at this point, because I don't see the logic right now for it, because it can also harm the band a lot, because it's such a different kind of platform to present your band. And, people already know us outside of the Netherlands. For us, it's not a necessity. So I really wanted to make sure that it was the right decision. And for me, it was a nice way to see it up close, to be like a jury member. So when I did that, I did stay with my first conclusion that it is not something for William Station, because I think it's more for artists that are actually, beginning and, are starting up and don't have that audience or fan base already that have a certain picture of you. So I think that's the most, it's a very good opportunity for those people, but not for a band that has been around for such a long time already. And well, for some bands it's great, but I still believe that it could harm more than it can do justice to our band, because if you don't win, in the Netherlands, it's like everybody has something to say about the participant who goes to the Eurovision festival. I love it, and then you're being played on the radio. And when you do, as long as you're in the contest, it's fine. But when you lose, you don't want to know the things they say and read and write about you. It's like, I think that doesn't do justice to the people that participate and want to represent their country in that way. So I think especially for newcomers, it's a really nice opportunity, but for bands like us, I don't think so that much.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense to me. Hey, listen, one more question before we kind of get deeper into the music. I see that, you've made the choice to be a mother, and I'm a dad myself, and I found that experience sort of was pretty transformative for me. And it makes me wonder, with a musician, particularly someone like yourself who's had so much success, if that experience changed how you thought about music or your approach to music, even if only in the rendering of certain songs.
Well, it did for my personal project. It did most definitely. I wrote some songs about being like a mother. Like, for instance, like Safe and Sound is a song that I put on my Indigo records. It's more about how you see. I could talk a little bit more about that, but for Within Station, a little bit more less so. It's more like you take it in yourself when you write lyrics, for instance, for certain songs, like when you write about the environment, the future of the world, and humanity, and in that context, I do have like that part of me. Of course, when I'm writing, I have a different aspect that I'm thinking about, the future, because I have children. Then I do take that in account, of course, but it's more when I make the more personal songs about that, it's more on my personal projects.
Well, I want to talk more about your voice, but because we've already mentioned a couple of times your solo project with Indigo, let's talk about that. The way I understand it is you kind of started to do that not necessarily with the intention of creating a release, but more for yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it was actually my dad got sick. He had cancer, and when he started to get sick, I felt like I was at the same time that I was really a bit burned out. I had close to a burnout, I think. With music and traveling and being in this roller coaster of the band for so many years, and also getting at a certain age that you start overthinking your your recent past and your well your early past as well. And so it's all that combination of my father getting sick and me being in that stage of my life. I felt like I needed to take a step back and and also a step back from With Invitation, because we have been in a roller coaster since my late 20s, and I've never done anything else than this except for my first day job that I had. So I really needed a break from everything, and I transformed that in songs actually. And I needed to find my love back for With Invitation at that time, so that's why I wrote the album. Also figuring out what I wanted to do with my life and how I felt about my father getting sick, and my life in general, how I was brought up and dealing with certain issues and with myself. So it's all been put on that album so I could place it somewhere and document it in a way, I think. And it was a necessity to even continue making music in the future with Invitation. So at that point I wasn't sure actually if I wanted to continue with Invitation, but because of the project, it also actually eventually brought me back to With Invitation, because I found out that it was also my lifeline somehow. You know, it's what I do, it's what I love, but I hate being away from home that much, especially when things like this happen, and also for my children, because you want to do right by them as well. So I decided also at that point that I wanted to do a different way of touring, tour in not like 6 weeks in a row, but just cut up like 2 weeks and then come back at home for 2 or 3 weeks, be a mom and be a normal person again, and then go on tour again for a few weeks and be whatever I am on stage. And I love both, and it's part of me both. It's a different version of me, I think. But it's both me. It's not an act or anything. It's just parts of me, and they all need a voice and they all need an outlet. So now I'm in a better place now, I think. So I'm trying to, and I think I'm trying to do it better every time. With every tour that I do, I have to do it differently, because that feels better. So I'm just going by my own compass navigation and try to figure out every time what works.
Well, I have to applaud you. For a number of reasons. I think it's ambitious to have the career you have and to find a way to navigate that with being a mom. So kudos to you there. And I love that you used music in a way to sort of figure out what you were going to do. And the music in the Indigo record, it has a different sort of, to me anyway, it has a different sort of sonic experience than Within Temptation. But what I found remarkable, I mentioned this in my setup, but I listened to the title track this morning, and I watched the video, and I don't know if the video representation was intentional relative to that, or if maybe there was a director, but as I was listening to your words and the music, it was interesting, because the music has one sort of quality, and then the way you invest it with emotion with your voice and the lyrics was really touching. And I actually stopped and replayed a section. You have a line where you say, "Can't we take a second now to rain down the heavy storm that's in our chest?" And I just, that hit me really hard. So I wanted to ask you that, and that particular video has this moment towards the end where a kid separated from his mother moves heaven and hell with it, and this creative mind to find his way back to her. And it's a very moving piece. I mean, so anyway, maybe that's more of a comment than a question.
Well, it is a direct connection to what the song is about. It's being separate from children are have such a difficult relationship with their parents, I think, most of the time, because they will forgive their parents for everything they do eventually, because that's the love that you feel for your parents as a kid. And that's what the love is most of the times, also from the parents towards the kids. But you have sometimes also a miscommunication, because there's an age difference, there's a different way of, some people can express themselves very easily and others can't. And this is for me a very personal story. So it's a little bit about the relationship for me, getting in contact with my dad constantly because he was always away for his work. And that's also why I have trouble sometimes with being on the road, because I miss my kids as well. And at the same time, I remember that how I felt when I was struggling without him, because I needed my dad very much. I remembered also, like, okay, I'm leaving as a mom as well, so that was difficult for me as well. And that's also why I'm still struggling every time when I go on tour. Like, I have to find a way that is working for them and for me. And in that song, I'm trying to talk to my dad also in a way that how that was for me as a kid, and it had also a certain impact on my life eventually. And on in the family life that we had at the time, which wasn't always perfect. Nobody's family life is perfect, of course,
Right.
but it had certain consequences for me as a person.
Yeah. Well, you've done a remarkable job, in my view, with that record in sharing some of that emotional territory. So thank you for that. I think it's I'm glad that you took time to do that, both for yourself and for those of us that you shared it with.
Oh, thank you.
Just a few minutes on your collaborations before we get to Within Temptation. So you've done work with Tobias Sammet with Avantasia. You've done work with Ariane. I wonder, like, you kind of get and it's not only with sort of narratively driven music, but you do definitely get asked to participate in narrative storytelling with a number of these artists. Is that something you have any particular attraction to? Because it seems to me that even in your own records, and there's some of it that's very specifically this way, that you have a penchant for that.
Well, for especially Anna Held, which I played the role for with Tobias Summit, I felt really, he told me the story, what the storyline was about. So I could really go into that emotion, like almost like an actor, and get your own life experience in there to portray her in a certain way. And he just let me free to do it however I wanted to, and I was really happy about that. So it was that was really a nice way of working with him, because he gave me the complete song, and so I could really prepare it really well, and that was a really a nice project to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have time to go over them all, but let me just mention a few for people who are listening now and who'll see it later. But you worked with Ariane on Into the Electric Castle. You've been a guest vocalist with Tara Turnen. You've worked with Amy Lee with Evanescence. There's more of these. We'll put a pointer so people can go and discover some of this music. I think it's exciting. I love to see this, and you've done this yourself with your own Within Temptation. Let's just skip ahead to that. There was a record you did called Hydra where you seem to deliberately pull in collaborators. Can you tell us some more about that?
Yeah, well, for instance, we worked with Exhibit, which a lot of people had their opinion about. They loved it or hated it. We've always we would like to evolve our sound, but also try to make crossovers and challenge ourselves to make it work, because we like so many different kinds of music. It's not just metal that we like. For me, a good song is a good song. If it touches me, it's an amazing song and I will love it. It doesn't matter what kind of genre it is. And sometimes I feel a little bit limited just being in metal. So the crossovers gives me the space and the chances to reach out to other bands or musicians out there who are so extremely talented, and which a crossover, it can bring such a new thing to music. So for me anyway, and it inspires us. So it's working with him was also was an amazing thing to do. He came to Amsterdam to us, and he did a video there, and he's just such a wise and nice, down-to-earth guy. And although he has such a different background, we really connected. And I think that's what music does. You connect to each other, although you're from different worlds and different backgrounds. Yeah, and that's the beauty of music, to my opinion.
Yeah, and you've to this point, you've had the courage not all artists do, and I don't mean to throw shade on artists who kind of find an approach that really works and love to continue to do that. But you've had a certain courage, I think, with your band to do different things, because as I was kind of walking through the number of records, you have music that is more traditionally goth metal and or doom metal. You definitely have flavors of neoclassical with that kind of orchestration that has become a signature with some of your music. There's stuff that's got folk influence. There's a whole area or strata of your music that seems to be influenced by 80s pop and that sort of
Yeah.
pop rock sound, and forward to industrial and EDM. And I think it takes a certain, I don't know, fortitude of, because you never know, you just want to make great music, but you never know what a fan's how they're going to receive it, right?
Yeah, totally. But I've always felt like if I'm an indicator, if they liked what we did before, and I'm in the indication of what's going to be for the future, then if I like it, I hope always that a big part of our fans will like it, because the essentials stay the same. We like heavy music, we like melody, and we like the epic scenery and storytelling, because we are storytellers in the essence of everything. We are storytellers, and that comes back in every record, although we change a lot still. But I think the red line is still there from a lot of things. Although I do understand if you compare the albums from the first one to now, people are shocked probably. But still, I think the emotion is still there. The melodies are still there, and the heaviness, we embrace that still, because we still love the heavy sound of a lot of things. But yeah, we like to explore, and for us, it's a necessity instead of something that is really something that you're thinking of, we have to do this. No, it's more like a necessity to be inspired to do this still after so many years. It makes our blood rush, makes us feel alive to do new things. And that's the reason why we do it.
Yeah, I think it's almost in some ways become part of the signature of the group that fans can expect that you're going to breathe new life into each new album, because you're going to bring new sonic experiences to it. I was listening to the most recent single, which we'll talk about just this morning, and I was struck by some sections of that sounded new to me, that I don't think I had heard in your music before. So I think you've almost created this, which is super unique for a band, I believe, this expectation in your fan base that I can't wait to see what they're going to do next.
Yeah, they're excited and they're afraid at the same time. Because I know there are some albums that people really don't like, but and others will dispute that and say that the albums that the other ones like, they don't like that. So it's, everybody has their favorites. And
yeah.
The thing is with music, I think people connect their emotions to it. So if they hear something that they can relate to, they will hold it closer to their hearts than songs they don't have any emotional connection to or imagery to, I think. And that's, I do it myself, actually. I have bands that I carry with me in my heart since my childhood. And when they do something new, it's like, I wanted to have actually exact replica of that album, but then new songs, So I totally can relate to that. But at the same time, I'm really happy to discover new music that I've never heard of before or wasn't aware of, like the new core metal. It's like that's something really recently that I discovered. Although it's been there for quite some time, of course, it's a development of different kinds of genres, and but somehow I missed it. And so recently with the pandemic, I was actually having more time to search for more music, and not just me, the whole band was just gone on the internet and searching for new blood and new inspiration. And then you come across a style that we didn't know that much about. And then you start to explore it and trying to implement certain aspects of it into your own music. And we're so totally excited about that song, particularly, of course, because it's something new and you want to play it live. And yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, I'm I'm a little, I don't know, maybe I'm strange in this regard, but usually when I find an artist, I'll attach to their melodic sensibility, the timbre of their voice, as I
Oh,
have
really?
with the way you sing, and what I find is even when they introduce new styles or they take new approaches, I usually recognize something fundamental about the group that doesn't change because it's all filtered through them as musicians. So I have bands like Queensryche that I'm a fan of that have gone through a ton of permutations, and some of their fans only want to hear, they only want another Operation Mindcrime.
Mindcrime,
Um,
yes, exactly, yeah.
but I'm a huge fan of even some of the later records and sometimes the deep cuts. So I understand there's an attachment sometimes to certain songs, and so I actually think sometimes that's because of who you were when you heard that music.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
an attachment. But I'm mostly just underscoring the point that I'm happy to have a band like you that is continually looking for things. I love the excitement, and but your voice, even though I think your voice has matured and gotten stronger, it's always you. And so that's a good segue. I want to talk a little bit about your voice. I've done, I don't want to rehash like training versus not training, because I know that, at least from what I've read, that wasn't formal training wasn't something that you did, but that you did spend a lot of time practicing. And so you've done a lot of self-instruction. And so we have a lot of musicians that follow the channel. I wondered if you could share with us just a little bit about how it was that because I read you'd sometimes spend 3 or 4 hours a day just really working your voice. So I'm interested in how you found your path to such a mature, powerful voice that you have.
Well, when I started singing, well, the first bands I was in, I was like 11 or something, but I've been singing way before that, just for myself, of course, in the shower, before, in front of the mirror, like any other young girl does, I think, when they discover a voice, their voice. And what happened for me was like, I discovered Mariah Carey, actually, which is not the typical kind of music that I would listen to, but I was intrigued by her vocal range. And the first 2 records I really loved, and she was going like high and low, and I was like, oh my god, it's like Steve Vai, but then for vocalists, I was like going high and doing so many things with her voice. I was amazed. And so I started practicing with her voice, singing her songs with that very highest notes, driving my parents crazy. And then, just as long as I could sing the certain notes that I found interesting. And it's like playing guitar, I guess, it's like trying to see how more difficult can you get it. And if you don't, just work it out just as long as you can.
Yeah.
With blisters. And for me, no blisters, of course, on my fingers. But yeah, and I felt naturally if something didn't work, I tried to go around it somehow with my voice, still being able to reach it, because I was fascinated with people with very light voices. And I started with Olivia Newton-John, which is more country music, of course, but I was in love with Grease. And that was a voice that I could really actually sing along very easily with. So I felt, okay, this is interesting. But then Tori Amos, Mariah Carey, I really had to practice really hard to get all those notes, because the range was so wide.
Yeah.
And so I just started practicing constantly those notes, and eventually I got better and better. And then I started, and when I was 11, I started with the first band. Second band, I was 14. It was called How to Be in a Band, and everybody got instructions how to play their instrument, the specific instrument they wanted to play. And vocally, they couldn't really teach me anything, but they said, you're on the right track. It doesn't hurt your vocal cords. You're doing fine. So I always kept that in mind, like, okay. And also when I was practicing myself, as soon as I felt it was difficult for my voice or painful, I started different techniques somehow. And also by listening, like, okay, she does something like this, and then I just tried it and it just worked out that way. So, and eventually I got up, I met Robert. He was in a band called The Circle, making similar kind of music as What Invitation does nowadays, in the early 90s, I think 91, 92, when he started with that band. And when I met him, he was 94. Anyway, and he asked me to sing in a more like Celtic kind of way. So I started to explore that, like Dead Can Dance and Clannad and those kind of bands, and seeing how they were singing. And I've always been a big fan of Tori Amos. So I was always inspired how she was singing. So all these ladies that I was listening to, I've taken in, I think, certain things of them. And eventually, when the band progressed as well with tonalities, I had to go lower with my voice and search a different kind of layer of tonalities again. And that worked out also for me. So, but it was just developing, it was going very naturally, like progression of the music. I had to progress also with my voice in a certain way again. And also with this latest song that we've done, I go to the really lowest registers of my voice, where I also go to the highest one. So it's like, and I think that's why I like, just not because it's the latest single, but because I go to so many varieties of the scale of notes. I really love the sing Shed My Skin that much, because it's like really high and really low, and yeah, a little bit showing off maybe.
No, that's what I mean. I think that, well, I have a bias towards vocalists anyway, because I'm a vocalist. So I listen very attentively to a singer. And so I wanted to tell you what I find remarkable in your voice. I now understand better having heard you talk about it, because the sort of light tone that you have, like Olivia Newton-John, is so beautiful and so delicate. And there's a lot of great female vocalists, but not all of them can do this, while at the same time being able to hit a max range with the sort of resonance that you do. There's an and it's all good. Like there's a place for all of it. But what I love in your voice is when I'll hear, and this is on the most recent single, Shed My Skin, is when you get up into really high register, it's resonant and it's powerful, but it never sounds forced. It never sounds like, oh my gosh, she's pushing so hard to hit these notes. It sounds kind of effortless. And for that, I mean, that's just a remarkable vocal technique. So I wanted to compliment you on that. And by the way, that song is, it sounds like that is one where you are exploring this newer metal and integrating the sound. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And also going that low was also very new for me. But I loved it also because, like, I don't know, it feels, I felt challenged, because in the beginning I said, I can't sing this. I can't sing it that high and I can't sing it that low. At least that was what I was thinking. And then I had to sing it for real, of course, because we had done small parts for the demo. And then I was starting singing. Actually, it just doesn't, I can do this actually. So I was really surprised. And also Christoph, who had to sing along, I can't sing this. I can't sing this. That's how he started the conversation when we were talking, like, oh, we want you to sing on it. I can't sing this song. It's too difficult. And then he started singing. It was just perfect for him. So yeah, sometimes you surprise yourself. And that's I think, a nice discovery for yourself. Like, okay, if you just try, you have to try things again.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention this, but you and Christoph, I mean, the third vocalist, whose name escapes me, is great too, but you and Christoph in particular, your voices blend together really well. I don't know if you knew that before you started, but I mean, not all voices kind of mesh.
No, I totally agree with you. Not every voice complements the other one. Sometimes, although they're beautiful on its own, but somehow it doesn't work together. I totally agree with that. I didn't know if it was going to work. All I knew is I loved his voice. I love his voice. And one of the reasons also to ask the band, also because of the music they make and also the way they wrote their music, because it's very interesting how they write their songs and everything, because it's quite genius, I must say, how they're a really good band, actually. You should check them out. And but the voice, I was
the name's Anasoke?
And it's okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, just wanted to be sure we said it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. and I love his voice, so that was the main reason for me to ask him. And I felt like it just touched me. It touched me so much. It was so emotional, and I felt like we can really, maybe complement each other somehow. But I was not sure if it's going to work. So I was really happy how it turned out. I'm really, I'm really proud of the song and how it worked out together. It was really, because it's challenged us both to do something beyond what we normally do, and and it worked out well, I think.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, this is the song I was referencing earlier, and this is real recent. This is within the last 6 or 8 weeks that this is released. But it's got the duet. It's got soaring vocals, just like some amazingly big notes. It's also got this low register you're talking about. You also do this other thing. This is not the only track, but I wanted to mention this, is something that, as I was taught it, is called a glottal stroke, and it creates this effect when you're kind of transitioning into a note. It's a theater effect, and it gives your music a sort of dramatic presentation that I don't know if you're aware of this. Some singers do it quite naturally, but and I can point to it maybe when I post this, but you do this particularly in this song, and it gives it a dramatic presentation that's really unique. Are you aware that you do this?
No, I don't actually, but I sometimes have this. Because you mentioned like some people do it like in musicals. Is
Yes.
that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, I like music as well. So I think probably somewhere I picked up something singing musical songs as well, like Phantom of the Opera. I love to sing, and like in the past I did it for a certain time in my life. So I think always when you write songs and when you start singing songs, you take certain elements to reach what you have in your mind, and you don't know exactly how you do, because I'm not technically educated for singing in any way, but I do everything by instinct, and just searching how far can I go with my voice in a natural way without having anybody told me how to do it actually, but just trying things and tutoring myself actually in a way. So I didn't notice. No. So to answer that, I didn't notice it. No.
It makes sense to me that that hearing you do this, and this is not the only track you do it in, but I wanted to bring it up because this is the most recent thing, and I think this song's a good gateway into Within Temptation for people who are less familiar with the band. But it makes sense to me that you're a theater fan. Because
I love theater. Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely some of this in your voice. One of my last main questions is returning to something we touched on briefly, which is around narrative in music. And when you guys did The Unforgiving, you guys had a real, I mean, that was conceptual from the
it was from the beginning. Yes, we had a comic also going along with the album. We had our own comic telling the whole story of the concept actually.
Now, is that was that you had someone sort of create a narrative for you to write to, or did you have the idea for that?
No, we talked. We wanted to make a comic, and we had a basic idea what the story should be about, and then we were looking for a writer to write it for us and together with us. So we gave him the concept of what we wanted to have and the theme, and he started giving feedback on that, and so we gave feedback and back again, so forth and back and forth. It became a story on its own together, and where he was eventually took the lead after that, when we gave him, it's like, okay, this is what we want, and we want these kind of stories more happening in the story, and he wrote the story for us. So that was how it came together.
It came together really well. And though the videos, for folks who haven't seen the videos, you said once, I found a quote, you described at least some of your music as very cinematic. And this particular record, and for sure these videos that you guys use to sort of tell these stories, are absolutely that way. I mean, they're like mini movies. They stand on their own. Yeah. It's really remarkable. Well, so we have this most recent single. I know that this is just a single. What's next for you guys then? Is it touring? You got tour dates, right?
Well, we have maybe one show still in the Netherlands, and then it's going to be a new single again this year. One more singles coming up, which is totally different again from the first three that we've just done. And I hope people will like it, because I've written, we wrote this song actually at the time that we wrote also Entertain You, but it's such a different song, and it has a little bit of flavor of The Unforgiving actually. So I'm wondering how people will receive this song. I really hope they like it, because it's one of my personal favorites as well. So and then it's going to be working on new material again for the upcoming album, which will be released with the previous songs that we have just released, the first three already, on the album next year, at the end of next year, probably, hopefully, if everything goes right. So yes.
So you're kind of doing. Go ahead.
yeah, and we have, of course, a tour in March, April with Evanescence, the Worlds Collide tour.
That's what I was going to get to. So you guys are working on material, but as you kind of run up to the new record, there will be tour dates.
Yeah.
Have all of those been published, or is there still some to be added?
Well, at this point, we have a lot of catching up to do from shows that we had to postpone. So, and as things are still very unsure about the future, we didn't. So the first thing we're going to do is that one show that we have in the Netherlands, and then we start the tour, the European tour, in March, April. And after that, there's going to be a lot of festivals that we have to catch up with. And after that, it's still open. Actually, what we're going to do, we have several options to go to, and we're still looking into that. So. You have to keep checking our social media.
We will.
I'm sorry, that's not a marketing excuse. It's really true.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
I think that everybody's kind of in the world in the flux. So we'll definitely include a pointer to the Within Temptation, and I encourage people to check out your Indigo solo record. It's remarkable. I think it's well worth your time. There's definitely some personal shadings in there that I think give it emotional complexity. My last question for you that I always ask folks I talk to is there another mountain that Sharon wants to climb? That could be a creative mountain, something different. It could be non-creative at all, but is there something that you want to do or try and achieve in your life that you just haven't had time for?
Well, there's, I'm a person that likes so many things, and but if you want to do something well, you really have to go for it. And music is my biggest love and passion. So, I play tennis, but I'm not very good at it, so I'll skip that one. But it's at this point, it's really, really finishing the new album and trying to a challenge. It's maybe a boring answer, but music is really my biggest love besides family, of course. But it's there's so much still to explore, and I don't want to look back on what we've done too much, because it will stop me from going forward also, in a way. That's a crazy idea in my head, probably. But for us, the biggest challenge is again to write still is to write the best song ever for us. It's like the latest single is for me now the best thing we've done so far, but it's not always the best song we've but it's for us, it's challenging ourselves to do better every time, because it makes it interesting, and to keep pushing yourself in a good way, of course, to reach a little bit outside the borders of what you've done before, and to learn from other musicians, and also give a stage to different people to be seen as well. So it's a double function, and but also what I've just been. There's a book that I'm going to read when I come back home, because I forgot to bring it with me. But there's this book. It's about a guy who organizes different kind of things in the Netherlands. Like, for instance, that we have these liberty festivals, and it's reflecting on the liberty that we have as a democracy in the Netherlands, but also reflecting on things happening in the world in different countries where they have where democracy is not that successful or being oppressed, or how you want to say it or call it. And there's a book about him and how he does these festivals with trying to have a higher goal than just music, but combined it with some kind of charity or some kind of doing something to pay attention to put a light on certain things in the world that aren't correct, or trying to help them somehow to also make people realize that democracy is very important. And so these kind of things is maybe a bit of blurry kind of story, but he does several projects in the Netherlands, and he does not just music, but he combines it with something good, something that is bigger than just music itself. And that's very interesting to me. So I'm going to read the book, and maybe there will come some kind of new ideas that we can do maybe ourselves. I don't know. We'll see. I hope so anyway.
That it sounds like a fascinating book. I'll watch for your review of it so that I can pick it up myself. Because that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart too. So It's interesting to hear you talk about that. Well, I thank you so much for your time, Sharon. I want to tell you, I love the newest cut for many, many reasons. I think it is unique. It's hard to say that I think it's your best, but it is as good as anything you've ever written. It certainly got distinction from other things that you've written. And I actually even love the video. It has this anthemic quality to it, just in the way that it's visually presented. So kudos to you. Like, as long as you guys keep making music where you're breathing this freshness into it, I think you're going to continue to attract legions of fans.
Well, I hope so. Well, at least we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And
that's important.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. There's, as an artist, I think you seek to please yourself first, because if you're only trying to please other people, you don't
get anywhere. So you have to be happy first, and then you can please the others. Like, you have to save yourself on the airplane first with a mouth cap, and then you can help others.
That's right.
It's not strange. I don't know, strange comparison, but no, you need to do this for yourself, and then eventually, hopefully there will be other people connecting to it, and as long as we have fun, we'll continue making music, I think, and even after so many years. Thank you so much for having us, and for
absolutely
sharing us on your platform, and good luck to you and everyone who's watching. Hope to see you one day, maybe somewhere. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sharon. You have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.